These wrestlers made their biggest heel moves outside the ring. Some are living, some aren't, but their reputations are seemingly beyond repair. JBL spent much of his early career in various tag teams, from his pairing with Barry Windham in the New Blackjacks to his memorable run with Farouk in the Acolytes, which became the APA. He finally came into his own as a singles wrestler when he took on the character of a rich Texan businessman. Sort of like a wrestling version of Dallas patriarch J.R. Ewing, it was reflective of his real-life success in the stock market. Throughout his career, JBL had a reputation as a backstage bully, and that reputation didn't go away after he retired from in-ring action and became a commentator. In March 2017, SmackDown Live lead commentator Mauro Ranallo abruptly stopped appearing on the show. JBL had called him out on the WWE Network program Bring It to the Table, poking fun at the Wrestling Observer newsletter naming Ranallo Announcer of the Year. While it was a scripted call-out, it rubbed Ranallo the wrong way, and he didn't return to SmackDown, where JBL was color commentator. Ranallo became the lead commentator on NXT instead.
Every working relationship you have to navigate. You're not always going to get along with everybody the way you would like to get along with your colleagues.
Former WWE ring announcer Justin Roberts was also quite open about his negative experiences with Layfield, documenting them extensively in his autobiography, Best Seat in the House. In a Reddit Ask Me Anything to promote his book in 2016, a fan asked Roberts about JBL. He replied, "He terrorized me and a lot of guys. He'd make life hell for a lot of guys. He chewed Miz and Morrison out after they won the WWE Tag Team titles for not celebrating enough." Tammy Sytch only rarely wrestled, and mostly in mixed tag team matches, but she didn't really need to, becoming one of the biggest stars in the WWF just by appearing on screen. After a stint in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, she and real-life boyfriend Chris Candido made their way to what's now WWE in 1995 with Sytch, under the name Sunny, managing Candido's tag team, the Body Donnas. She'd go on to manage some other teams, but quickly became a fan-favorite attraction all on her own. Sytch and WWE refer to Sunny as the original diva. Even at the height of her success, Sytch was heavily abusing drugs and alcohol. After no-showing some appearances, she was let go from the WWF in 1988. She made her way to ECW and WCW for some brief stints, but was out of both by 2000. Things maybe seemed to be turning around for Sytch when she was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011, but the press she's gotten since has proven otherwise. She racked up multiple domestic violence charges in the early 2010s and has a far more well-documented history of arrests for driving under the influence. In November 2023, Sytch was sentenced to over 17 years in prison for her role in a drunk driving accident that killed a 75-year-old man.
A precious life was lost that tragic day, and I am so incredibly sorry for that.
Over a fairly long career spanning the 1990s and 2000s, Bill DeMott was a solid mid-carder in WCW and the WWE. He wrestled under several names, but the one he kept coming back to was Hugh Morrus. Get it? Humorous? After retiring in 2011, DeMott became a WWE trainer. He played a prominent role in the company's reality competition series Tough Enough, and he eventually became head coach at the WWE Performance Center when it opened in 2013. 2 years later, DeMott resigned from that position amid a slew of controversies regarding his training methods. The Washington Post reported that several developmental talents, including Austin Madelson, who now wrestles as Luchasaurus in AEW, complained about DeMott's physical and verbal abuse, which included hitting one wrestler with a legitimate groin shot and making inappropriate comments. A female trainee who chose to remain anonymous claimed on Reddit that DeMott looked the other way when she and other wrestlers reported another coach who was engaging in sexually abusive behavior. Former Tough Enough contestant Ivelisse Velez told interviewer Chris Van Vliet,
"He has a personality that can become rather quickly a bully-type personality."
Billy Jack Haynes was a solid mid-card hand in mid to late 80s WWF. His WrestleMania 3 Full Nelson Challenge match against Hercules Hernandez was arguably the highlight of his stint with the company. Haynes retired from wrestling in 1996, and much of that retirement was pretty quiet, though he was one of many wrestlers who sued WWE in 2016 over long-term brain injuries. That suit was dismissed. What hasn't been dismissed are charges that Haynes allegedly shot and killed his wife, Jeanette Becraft, who was 85 years old and suffering from dementia. The New York Times reported that Haynes was arrested following a standoff with police. He was described as uncooperative after authorities found him at home on the morning of February 8, 2024. He was later taken to a hospital for reasons, quote, unrelated to the homicide or his contact with law enforcement. On February 28th, he was released from the hospital and jailed for charges of second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. As of the making of this video, his trial has not started.
When I got in that wrestling ring, I was ready to kill somebody. When I got out of the wrestling ring, I was ready to kill somebody.
Billed at 7 feet tall and 320 pounds, Grizzly Smith was an imposing presence in the ring. Outside it, he's considered one of the most despicable figures the wrestling business has ever seen. His son, WWE Hall of Famer Jake the Snake Roberts, told Sports Illustrated that he was conceived after Smith sexually assaulted the 12-year-old daughter of the woman he was dating. Roberts said, "My parents then got married because that's what you did back then. She had 2 more children fairly quick, and before the age of 17, she was divorced with 3 kids." Smith's daughter, Rockin' Robin, followed her older brother and father into the wrestling business. In an interview with High Spots Wrestling Network, she accused her father of molesting her, starting when she was 6 or 7 years old.
It wasn't just me. I think it's something that's deeply embedded with any child molester. There's just something really off there.
Smith died in 2010. Finnish wrestler Tony Halima portrayed foreign heel Ludvig Borga in the WWF in the mid-1990s. He also had a brief career in mixed martial arts, most notably losing in less than a minute to MMA icon Randy Couture at UFC 13 in 1997. But Halima got far more heat for what he would do years later. As a member of the Finnish parliament in 2003, Halima, representing the National True Finns Party, made homophobic comments about the country's then president, Tarja Halonen, even though Halonen is in a heterosexual marriage. He also racked up multiple charges related to smuggling, illegal use of firearms, drug use, and driving under the influence. Halima even dabbled in music, releasing a 1999 single that made it all the way to number 2 on Finland's pop music charts, despite containing homophobic lyrics. Halima died in an apparent suicide in January 2010. Legendary former WWE announcer Jim Ross wrote on his personal blog at the time, "Tony obviously had issues and was not a great guy to be around. I personally found him to be somewhat obnoxious, and he could be a bully if allowed to be such. Guys like Halima don't mix well in any locker room and need to be removed from the team sooner than later." The Fabulous Moolah was unquestionably the most dominant woman in professional wrestling history. WWE lists her first reign as women's champion as lasting an astounding 28 years.
Did you get any moolah?
You bet.
She trained several female wrestlers throughout her decades in the business and remained active as an occasional performer even into the late 1990s, winning her 4th and final title in October 1999. On the surface, that sounds like someone the WWE would want to honor following her 2007 death, right? Well, when WWE named its Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania 34 after her, fans cried foul, and they had to change it. The protests arose because many of the women who trained under Moolah have made claims she exploited them, financially and otherwise. In an interview with Pro Wrestling Sheet, former student Mad Maxine went into detail, saying, "A lot of women paid to train at her school and then went out on the road. They risked life and limb in their matches, and she repaid them with the worst kinds of abuses. She skimmed their money, she ignored women who were badly hurt, she pimped women out to creepy men, and on and on." Starting out in the Calgary-based Stampede Wrestling before signing with WWF in 1984, Tom Dynamite Kid Billington was one of his era's most innovative in-ring talents. As half of the British Bulldogs alongside his cousin, Davey Boy Smith, Billington held WWF World Tag Team Gold once. As his injuries added up, Billington got deeper and deeper into drug and alcohol abuse, which didn't help his reputation as a backstage bully who pulled cruel pranks. Bret the Hitman Hart said on his Confessions of the Hitman podcast, "He had a lot of enemies, and he did a lot of lousy things to people. He was a real bully, and he would pick on guys that were minding their own business." Things were even worse at home, where Billington's explosive temper led to a violent argument that culminated in him pointing a gun at his then-wife, who was pregnant at the time. Billington dealt with various health issues after he retired from wrestling, and he died on December 5, 2018, on what was his 60th birthday. His nephew, Tommy Billington, now wrestles in AEW, also under the name The Dynamite Kid. For most of his wrestling career, Superfly Jimmy Snuka was a beloved babyface, a high-flying daredevil whose style influenced many. But Snuka's personal life was clouded by tragedy and controversy. In May 1983, Snuka's then-girlfriend Nancy Argentino died under mysterious circumstances. For decades, Snuka denied allegations that he killed her, but his story was wildly inconsistent.
What are the odds? Freak accident, huh?
I was going nuts.
In Snuka's 2012 autobiography, Superfly, The Jimmy Snuka Story, the retired wrestler claimed that Argentino, who had momentarily stepped out of his car, slipped and hit her head, and later died in her sleep in their hotel room. Almost 3 decades prior, Snuka told authorities that Argentino suffered the fatal head injury while the two of them were play wrestling in the hotel room. Both versions of the story conflicted with autopsy reports that suggested that Argentino's injuries may even be suggestive of mate abuse due to many blows to the head. Snuka was not formally charged with Argentino's death until 2015, and 1 year later he was found unfit to stand trial due to his apparent dementia, which prosecutors found suspicious. He died of stomach cancer in January 2017. A mainstay of the hardcore wrestling scene for around 30 years, Jerome Young, aka New Jack, was known to be a loose cannon in the ring. Most infamously, in 1996, New Jack decided to teach 17-year-old Eric Koulas, a fan who got booked in an ECW match by lying about his age, a lesson about disrespecting the business. New Jack cut Koulas with a surgical scalpel, severing 2 arteries. He later showed no remorse for his actions, insisting that Koulas' father provoked him with a racial epithet.
So you really didn't care what happened to him at that point?
No, I didn't.
Because it was his idea for you to cut him?
Yeah.
At a 2003 independent show, New Jack viciously took liberties with his 69-year-old opponent, who apparently angered him by calling the match in advance. New Jack hit Gypsy Joe Melendez multiple times with a chair, then beat him with a barbed wire baseball bat before the match was declared a no contest. New Jack's unsavory personality also manifested in his family life. His child, drag performer Washington Heights, claimed to Vice in 2020 that her father unfriended her on Facebook because she is a drag queen. New Jack sent an email to Vice denying the allegations, but the outlet noted that the wrestler used a homophobic slur on a Facebook stream a month prior. New Jack died in May 2021. The Ultimate Warrior was a dominant star in late 80s and early 90s WWF, but remained mysterious enough to have strange urban legends crop up about him. Some fans sincerely thought there were 2 of him, for example. There was just one guy, though, whose name was James Hellwig until he legally changed his name to Warrior in 1993. After his in-ring career came to an end, Warrior became a conservative blogger, and he made headlines with a homophobic 2005 rant at the University of Connecticut. He would then double down on his anti-LGBTQ beliefs in a blog post he shared after the Yukon engagement. That same year, he commented that the victims of Hurricane Katrina got what was coming to them. He also used his blog to spew vitriol toward iconic manager Bobby the Brain Heenan and suggests that his cancer diagnosis was karma. In 2007, he openly wondered why Martin Luther King Jr. has a holiday. The following year, Warrior sarcastically mourned the death of actor Heath Ledger and opined that he did his child a favor by dying of a drug overdose, writing, "His kid is without a father, yes, but the negative influence is now removed and his own child has the chance for a full recovery." He never publicly apologized for those offensive comments prior to his death in 2014. WWE inducted Warrior into its Hall of Fame just before he died and posthumously named a humanitarian award after him.